In this tutorial, let's look at setting up GitHub with Eclipse for Maven-based Java projects. Before we look at GitHub, Git is a version control system like CVS, Maven, etc. The Git's real flagship product is the GitHub, where you can share your projects and your prospective employers can look at your self-taught projects. In a development environment where multiple developers are working, you always need a version control system where different developers will be committing different snapshots. And from one snapshot to another snapshot, there will be change sets. And then also you will be creating different streams of work. So you will be having a master stream where you will be working on bug fixes, and also you might have additional feature branches where another team of developers might be working on new features. There will be some point in time you will have to merge or rebase the changes, and a version control system is a must for any development environment. And Git is one such version control system, and let's look at how we can integrate that with Eclipse. Firstly, you need to go into github.com, which is like a version control remote repository on the cloud. So, and also it's like more like a social media for the developers where you can showcase your projects, and also you can provide a link in your resume so that the prospective employers can look at your work. And also you can contribute to third-party projects, open source projects, and GitHub allows you to fork a third-party project, make some contribution, and create a pull request for the committers of that third party of the open source project to accept your changes, and then you can put this contribution in your resume. So there are a lot of ways you can stand out from your competition by making use of GitHub and creating some non-trivial and interesting projects. So firstly, it is always worthwhile getting an account on GitHub. So once you get an account, then you log into the GitHub, and the first step you do is you create a repository. So let me create a repository here. So click on new repository, and I'll give it a name as self-taught projects. Leave it as public so that you can share it with others, and don't tick this initialize repository, and leave it unticked, and just click on create repository. So this will create a repository, and this is a remote repository, and you should be able to access this via an HTTPS or an SSH protocol. So let me copy this HTTPS path and copy it onto a notepad, which will be using it later. So it's been copied. So this is HTTPS github.com, my account, and the repository name, which is a self-taught projects. So once you have created a repository, now let me go back to the Eclipse, and I'm using a newer version of Eclipse, so it comes a plugin for Eclipse that works with GitHub. Is called eGit, and this eGit is already installed as part of this release. If it is not, you can go into here, the link provided below. You can install it as shown below. You can go to help install new software, and then provide these installation update links, and then you have to follow the prompts through. So it's all listed in the link provided below. So let's assume here now you got a newer version of Eclipse which has got already installed. So you go help about Eclipse, and you will see this is the Eclipse eGit. So this is a plugin that we'll use from within Eclipse to connect to a remote repository, which is GitHub. And firstly, you can go into Window, Preferences, and inside Team, you will see a selection called Git. You can also type Git at the top, which will filter it. Now we have already set up a new folder here, which is under Tools, Home, Local Repo. So this is like a local repo to bring in the Git projects. And then go back into Eclipse. It says C Tools, Home, Local Repo. And also we need to set up the configuration so that when you check in, your username and your email details will be marked against your check-in. So let's add an entry. We put a key called user.name, and I'll provide my name as Arul. Then add another entry called user.email and provide an email address, java-interview@hotmail.com. And once it's been set up, apply and say OK. The next step is we need to organize the views that will give you Git and probably the perspective as well. So Eclipse provides a number of different views and perspectives to work with Git. So we'll go into Window, Show View, and one of the key ones are we go into the Git and Git repository and Git staging. So let's highlight those two and we'll say OK. And you can see this is the Git repositories and this is the Git staging. And another useful one, go back into the Show View, Other, and then inside the team we'll get history, so we can see different version histories and say okay, now the history has come in here. And also another handy view is you can go Window, Perspective, Customize Perspective, and then inside Action Set Available there's a Git option, and you can tick on the Git option and you say okay. You will not only get a Git menu at the top here, but also you have got some Git icons that you can push, pull, and so on. So before we go in and start cloning and pulling, pushing things, let's look at some of the basics. So in this particular thing, in one of the previous projects, we created a very simple Maven project. And in that project, one of the source files is the hello world.java. This is the hello world.java here. All it does is just does a system out.println, my first Java code from Maven based Java project. And if we step back and look at some of the basics of Git, so Git has got a number of repositories. So first one is a remote repository, in this case which is the github.com. So most developers will be committing to the remote repositories. They'll be pulling out the code from the remote repository. They will be bringing into their local repository. So this is the local repository. They'll be start working on their changes. So remote repository will be shared by multiple developers. So once you clone a remote repository, then you get a local repository. This is in your local machine. And once you get a local repository, you can work without any internet connection or whatever. So that's how this differs from Maven. So you can have your own local repository, which is the clone of the remote repository. Then you can start committing to that local repository, and you can work off that, check out code or different branches or the main master or whatever from the local repository, make code changes, commit those changes, etc. The only time when you're ready to push those changes to the remote repository, you need an internet connection. So then you go and push those changes. so that other developers can see what you have done. And when you are working within the local repository, the Git, the way it works is you've got a .git folder, and it will hold all the metadata. And your working copy or the working tree will be the outside the .git folder. And every time you check out from your local repository, you either work in a master or you create new branches called feature branch 1, bug fix branch 1, and so on. And once you check out, and you'll be working on that particular branch, and you have to stage those changes. So you add whatever changes you make into the staging area, and then from the staging area you need to commit it. If you don't do these steps, when you switch from one branch to another branch, your changes will be lost. So once you commit it, and then when you're happy with those changes, you can push them to the remote repository. So the good thing about that is, because you're working in your local repository, without having to go to the remote repository, you can do diffs of different changes, you can log the changes, and so on within your own local machine itself. So that's why it's called a highly distributed version control system. So where you can work on your own, and when you're ready, you connect to the internet and push those changes to the remote repository. So now let's look at how we can achieve this. Now what we are going to do here is, we have a simple Maven project. So this doesn't have any link to the Git at the moment. So this is like a standalone project, and this is, if you look at right click and say properties, if you see the source, this is under C projects folder. So let's first clone. So we have already created a remote repository here, and we have called it self.projects. So the first step is clone a Git repository, and you need to, this is where I copied earlier. So you copy this URL to the remote repository and paste it here, and you got to enter your username to your account, Git account, and Git account password. Then you click on next, next again, and it's telling you where your local repository path is. So you have already set up a folder called tools, home, local repo, and then it'll be under self.projects. The repository name on the GitHub is called self.projects, so we'll keep the name the same. And then if I go and finish, now you can see here we have a Git repository which is a self.projects and got the path here, so which is called the self.projects. Because now the remote Git repository is empty, so we have just created a blank repository, but we don't have any projects or subfolders or anything as such. So now we got a working tree here. So it says tools, home, local, self.project. This is the path. Then it also got remotes. So it knows how to go upstream or downstream. So it knows how to go to the GitHub remote repository. So one is you can pull changes from there, or you can push your changes to the repository. So this path is where we have set up this GitHub. And now if you look under branches, there's local and then remote tracking. This will be tracking from your local repository to the remote repository. So now if you see now here, still the projects under properties is under C projects. Now we have to right click on this and let's share this project with Git. So you go team and then select share project, and then it asks you which repository you want to share it with, and we have already have a project self.projects local repository. Now say OK and click on finish. Now what we have done is basically we have push this or move run a git move command, now your project is sitting inside the tools home local ref self-taught projects simple maven project folder, and it creates a .git file. So if you go into local repo, this is the path self-taught projects. Now you can see it is gitified .git. So anything inside .git, this is your local repository, and this is your project. And the next step, as mentioned here, so from our workspace we already have a project that we need to add it to a staging area, and from the staging area we want to commit that into the local repository. So to do that, first let's go and right click on it, and we have also got a .git ignore project, because no point in committing the generated .class files into the Git repository, because those classes can be generated. You only want to really commit the source file. So you can create a git ignore file that says ignore anything inside the target folder, so it won't push them to the remote repository. Now in order to stage them as shown here, so from a working copy, so these are working copy here, and we want to stage them. So we do git add command, or within Eclipse you do it a bit differently, and then we need to do a git commit. So let's do those two steps. So you right click on it, then select team and select commit. So now when you are in commit, it gives you a list of files. So let's go and drag them and place them into staging area. So we need to push through all these files. So we will put a comment as user1 initial commit. We could actually commit and push at the same time, but let's only commit and do one stage at a time. So once you have committed it, you can go in here, click on the local. Now you've got a SHA token ID, which is a simple hashing algorithm, hash value of that particular snapshot. So it's in the master, but your remote repository doesn't know anything about that commit yet. If I refresh it, there's nothing there because we haven't pushed it. It's still in the local repository. So what we have got now is the changes are in here in the local repository. So we have added, we have staged it, and we have committed it to the local repository. So if we go here, you can see it's a 28E35E7 is the hash value for that particular snapshot. Now the next step is to go and push that change onto the remote repository. You can do it a number of ways. We can select it here and we can push it through the top menu, or we can select on the Git menu here and we can push upstream. Also we can select it here and right click on it and say push branch, or alternatively we can go in here under remotes, right click on this and say push. So let's do the push now. So it's master, so we are on the master stream. So we can create multiple branches if you want to work on feature branch, bug fix branch and so on, but in here master is the main default branch. So this is a master. Let's say okay. Now you go into GitHub and do a refresh. Now you can see the simple Maven project has been pushed to the remote repository. So that basically we have done this step. So from the local repository, and we have pushed those changes to the remote repository. Now anyone else from anywhere in the world who have got the account and who are interested in that particular piece of code, they can clone that data onto their local repository and start working on it. So let's assume now that somebody else, another user, coming in and making a change on the machine and pushing it in. So to emulate that, I'll just make a change or modify it in the GitHub itself. So I'm going to click on Simple Maven project. I'm going to go into source main com material hello world.java, and I'm click on this edit file. Then I'm going to copy the system.out.println and paste it here, and changed in GitHub. Then I'm going to go here and put a name here saying that changed by user 2. Any description, changed by user 2, and I'll commit these changes. Now the changes are made here, but you wouldn't know, those changes are not reflected here. So if I go into source main Java hello world.java, those changes are not here. Still you see the old code. Now I want to fetch or pull those changes. There's a difference between you can do a pull, or you have to fetch it and then merge it. So there's a difference. So when you do a fetch, you are basically fetching it from the remote repository into your local repository. And then if you want to get that into your working area, you need to make a git merge. Or alternatively, you can do a git pull, which will pull all the way to your, which will do these two steps in one go. Basically it fetches it into your local repository and then into your working copy, which is the master working copy. So let's go and try that. So firstly, what I'm going to do, also make note of this change set. So the change that we have made here is A96D57A, A96D57A, which is different from the previous commit we did, which is 28E35. So if you look at the remote tracking, and these two are in the same. So 28E35E7, 28E35E7. Now if I go and select this, and if I fetch those changes, this hash value will change. So I'm going to right click on this origin and then say fetch. It's saying the same, A96D57AB, which is same as this, A96D57A. So this is a change I'm going to fetch. I'm just going to say OK. Now you can see here your remote tracking. It shows now A96D57A. But your master, which is your working copy, is still 28E35. Because we only did the fetch, we didn't do the pull. So we got two options now to align the master, which is your working copy, with the remote tracking. Either you can click on here and say merge. That will merge whatever is in the remote repository, will get merged to your working copy. Or alternatively, you can click on this and say you can create a pull from here. So you got to select on the project, team, and say pull. And it says these are the change sets available. Say A96D57ABC changed by user 2. So this is the first one we did the commit. This changed by user is available. So I say OK. And now if you go and look at your master, both the hash values are the same. A96D57A, A956D7A, and also you can see the new line that we added, it's in here. So system.println changed in GitHub. Now we said this is the working history, so it gives you a history of all the snapshots. So if you click on history here, it's nothing is shown here. So all you have to do is right click on here and then say show in history. Now you can see the history here. Firstly, we did an user 1, that is from this machine we did an initial commit, and because I have already set up the configuration, my name is Arul via the window preferences and configuration, so it knows that I committed this change, so it puts my name in here. That's the initial commit, and the ID, the hash ID is 28E35E7. Then we went and made a change on the GitHub itself. Then I got a different user ID name here. So with this we are trying to emulate as if somebody has made a change, and we are pulling those changes, and that name is in here, and that's a different change set ID. So the history will show you, which is a very important tool, and which shows you the different change sets or different snapshot. This is one snapshot and this is another snapshot, and the difference from this snapshot to this snapshot is the change set basically. So this is a very quick introduction how to get Eclipse to work with GitHub. We will have more, there are other tutorials in the links provided below, and also there are quite a few interview questions and answer style which will take you through all different options, how to work with Git, what forking is, and all the likely questions that you get asked in the interview. Thank you.